Welcome to English Stories Journey. Listen, relax, and grow your English with every story. Snow covered the quiet town of Pine Hollow like a thick white blanket. The streets were clean and silent, broken only by the soft sound of boots stepping on fresh snow. Christmas lights shone warmly in every window, gold, red, and blue stars blinking in the dark winter air. From small speakers on the street lamps, gentle Christmas music played, filling the town with comfort and tradition. But at the edge of the main street, one house stayed dark. No lights, no decorations, no sound. People walked past it quickly, pretending not to notice. In the center of Pine Hollow stood the old notice board. It had been there for decades, holding lost dog posters, holiday events, and school announcements. That morning, a small crowd gathered around it, whispering and smiling. Written across the wooden board in thick red paint were the words, "Santa Claus is coming to town." Some laughed. "Probably teenagers," said Mr. Collins, the baker, "trying to be funny. Or someone getting into the Christmas spirit," another woman said, smiling. Children pointed at the message and giggled. A few even clapped, excited by the idea of Santa watching them. Phones came out, pictures were taken, and soon people began to walk away, thinking nothing more of it. But Emma did not laugh. She stood still, her scarf tight around her neck, her eyes fixed on the words. Emma was a young schoolteacher, new to Pine Hollow. She had learned to trust her instincts, especially around children, and something about the message felt wrong. The letters were uneven, scratched deep into the wood, as if written in anger. The paint had dripped down the board like slow tears. It was not bright red like holiday decorations. It was dark, thick, almost brown. Too dark. Emma stepped closer and noticed something else. Beneath the message, faint and almost invisible, were marks, lines, scratches, as if someone had tried to erase something before writing the warning. She felt a cold shiver run through her body, even under her coat. That evening, Pine Hollow prepared for Christmas Eve. Families cooked warm meals. Children were sent to bed early with excitement in their eyes. Fireplaces crackled, and laughter filled homes. Emma sat alone in her small house, marking homework by the light of a single lamp. Outside, snow continued to fall, soft and endless. She tried to focus, but her thoughts kept returning to the message. She looked at the clock. 11:59 p.m. The town was completely silent. Then, suddenly, bong! The deep bell rang through the air. Then another, and another. The sound was heavy, old and slow, echoing across rooftops and frozen streets. Emma's heart began to pound. She stood up and walked to the window, her breath fogging the glass. The bells rang exactly 12 times. When the final sound faded, Pine Hollow fell silent again. But Emma knew one thing for certain. The message was not a joke, and whoever or whatever had written it was watching. The next morning, Pine Hollow woke under a pale winter sun. The bells of the church rang softly, but their sound no longer felt comforting. People stepped outside more slowly than usual, their smiles tired and unsure. The scream came from the Miller house. By the time Emma arrived, a small crowd had gathered in front of the door. Mrs. Miller stood in the snow, shaking, her hands pressed to her mouth. Inside the house, the air was cold, even though the fireplace had burned all night. Their son's bedroom was empty. The bed was neatly made, the blanket folded as if no one had slept there. The window was wide open, and snow had blown onto the floor, leaving small footprints that stopped suddenly, as if the child had vanished into the air. On the wall, written in gray ash, was a single word: naughty. No one spoke. The word seemed to stare back at them, silent and accusing. The police searched the woods. They checked the roads. They asked questions, but no one had answers. There were no signs of a struggle, no broken locks, only the open window and the word on the wall. That night, Pine Hollow did not sleep. At exactly midnight, the bells rang again. Deep, slow, heavy. The sound rolled through the town like a warning. Parents rushed to their children's rooms. Some held them close. Others sat by their beds, wide awake, listening. In the morning, another child was gone. Then another. Each time it was the same: an empty bed, an open window, cold air filling the room, and always, written in ash or soot, the same word: naughty. Fear spread quickly. Parents nailed windows shut and locked doors with extra keys. Curtains were closed tight. Christmas lights were turned off, as if darkness could hide them. Children were no longer excited about Santa. They cried and asked questions no one could answer. Will Santa take me? Am I good enough? Emma heard these whispers at school before the town closed it down. She tried to comfort her students, but her own voice trembled. She remembered the songs she had sung as a child. He sees you when you're sleeping. He knows when you're awake. At the time, they had seemed playful. Now they sounded like a threat. That evening, Emma sat alone, staring at the notice board from her window. The red message was still there, untouched by snow or time. Santa Claus is coming to town. What if he was real? Not the kind old man with gifts and laughter, but something older, something colder, a judge, not a giver. Emma felt a terrible thought settle in her mind. What if the children were not being punished for being bad? What if they were being taken because no one was truly innocent? Outside, the wind howled softly. Somewhere far away, a bell rang once, low and distant. Emma turned off the light and locked her door, and she prayed she had been good enough. The old library of Pine Hollow stood at the edge of town, half hidden by snow-covered trees. Few people visited it now. After the children disappeared, no one wanted to be alone, and the library was always silent. But Emma knew she had to go. Inside, the air smelled of dust and cold paper. The lights flickered as she walked between tall shelves filled with forgotten books. Her hands shook as she searched the history section, pulling out anything about winter traditions or local legends. At the back of the library, she found a thin, cracked book bound in dark leather. There was no title on the cover. When she opened it, a chill ran through her fingers. The book spoke of an ancient Santa, older than the songs and stories people loved. He was not cheerful or warm. He did not laugh. He came in winter when the world was silent and weak. His duty was not to bring joy, but order. According to the legend, this Santa watched everyone. Children, parents, teachers, no one was invisible. He carried a list, just like in the songs, but it was not a list of toys or wishes. It was a list of sins, lies, cruel words, broken promises, small wrongs that people forgot but never truly escaped. Emma swallowed hard as she read. Those who were marked naughty were taken away in the night, not to be killed, the book said, but to learn their lesson. Where they were taken, the book did not explain. It only warned that those who returned were never the same. Emma turned the page and froze. A drawing showed a tall figure in a red coat, his face hidden in shadow. In his hands was a long scroll. Beneath the image were words written in faded ink. The list grows longer every year. Her heart pounded. The disappearances were not random. They were chosen. Emma thought of the children, their fears, their small mistakes. Had this thing judged them so harshly? Suddenly, the library clock began to tick louder. Then, bong! A bell rang outside. Emma gasped and looked up. The sound was closer than before, deep and slow, echoing through the empty streets. Another bell followed, then another. The windows rattled gently as snow fell harder. Emma slammed the book shut and hugged it to her chest. She knew now that the warning on the notice board had been true. Santa had come to Pine Hollow, and he was making his list. As the bells rang again, louder and nearer, Emma realized something else. Everyone was on it, and the night was not over yet. The clock struck midnight. Emma sat frozen in her chair, every light in the house turned off. The book from the library lay open on the table, its pages trembling slightly as cold air crept through the room. Outside, the snow had stopped falling. Then she heard it. Crunch, crunch. Heavy footsteps moved slowly across the roof, each step pressed deep into the snow, careful and deliberate. Emma's breath caught in her throat. The sound was too heavy to be human. A sudden rush of cold air burst down the chimney. Snow spilled onto the floor, hissing as it touched the dying embers in the fireplace. The room darkened as a tall shadow stretched across the walls. A figure stepped forward. Santa Claus stood before her. His suit was a deep, dark red, stained and worn. His boots were black and thick, covered in ice. His beard hung stiff and white, frozen at the edges. When he raised his head, Emma saw his eyes, pale, empty, cold as winter glass. "I know what you've done," he said softly. His voice was calm, almost gentle, but it carried weight, like the sound of distant bells. Emma's legs trembled, and she had to grip the table to stay standing. I try to be good," she whispered. Santa did not smile. He reached into his coat and slowly unrolled a long, yellowed scroll. The list seemed endless, covered in names written in dark ink. Santa's finger moved down the page until it stopped. Emma's name. Memories rushed through her mind, sharp words spoken in anger, moments of selfishness, times she had looked away when she should have helped. Small mistakes, human mistakes. Tears filled her eyes. "Please," she said, "I can change." Santa looked at her for a long moment. The bells outside rang once, loud and close. "The lesson begins," he said. The fire went out. The room fell into darkness, and the door creaked open by itself. Christmas morning arrived quietly in Pine Hollow. No laughter echoed through the streets. No children ran outside to open gifts. Snow lay untouched, smooth and pale, as if the town itself was holding its breath. The missing children never returned. Doors slowly opened as families stepped outside, afraid of what they might see. The old notice board in the main square stood bare. The red message was gone. No paint, no scratches, no warning, only silence. Near the center of the square, words had been carved directly into the snow, deep and careful, as if made by a heavy hand. Be good, always. No one knew who found the message first. No one spoke of it aloud. People simply read it and turned away, their faces pale with understanding. The church bells did not ring that day. In fact, they never rang again. Christmas passed without songs, without joy, without hope. Life continued, but Pine Hollow was not the same. Parents watched their children closely. Kindness was no longer a choice, it was fear. And every year, on Christmas Eve, when the wind blows low and cold, people listen closely. Some swear they hear heavy footsteps above their homes, slow, careful, watching, because Santa Claus is coming to town. Thank you for listening. Like and subscribe for more English stories.